Part 5, Directive Principles of State Policy. Article 31 to 51. Consider the following statement regarding directive principle of state policy. They are not enforceable in court of law. Their enforcement may override the fundamental right. They are fundamental in the governance of the state. Directive principle is a non-justifiable yet a fundamental in the governance in the country. The binding force behind the directive principle of state policy is a public opinion. Directive principle of state policy are not enforceable in the court. Directive principle of state policy are fundamental in the governance of the country. According to the Constitution of India, which one of the following fundamental for the governance of the country? Directive principle of state right. The enforcement of the directive principle of state policy primarily depend on resource available with the government. Directive principle of state policy are non-justifiable. What are the directive principle of state policy? The principles that are accepted to guide the state in the good governance of the country. Directive principles of state policy are non-justifiable. Consider the following statement. Directive in nature of the idea of the state directly influence the shaping of the public policy, non-justifiable right of the citizen. Though the directive principle of the state policy contained in the Constitution are not enforceable by court, yet they are fundamental in the governance of the country. Not enforceable by any court, fundamental to the governance of any country. Directive principles of the state policy are fundamental for the governance of the state. Consider the following statement relating to directive principle of state policy. Directive principle of state policy do not impose a positive obligation on the state so long as there are no carry out of directiveness. Neither state nor the individual can violate any existing law and right under the color of the following directives. Court cannot competent to compel the government to carry out any directive principle. Directive principle of state policy is not enforceable by any court. Directive principles are more or less fundamental in the governance of the country. Directive principle of the state policy under Constitution of India aim to create an welfare state. In India, which one of the following is the real guiding factor of the state to meet a social need for the establishment of new social order? Directive principle of state policy. The obligation of the state to secure a social order for the promotion welfare of the people means a social order in which justice, social, economic and political shall inform all the institutions of national life. In which one of the following cases where the provision of the Constitution 42nd Amendment Act, which gave a precedence to all or any directive principle of state policy over fundamental right, invalidated by Supreme Court in the case of Minerva Miles versus Union of India. Article 39A of the Constitution of India obliges state to secure an adequate means of livelihood. Which one of the following amendment accorded precedency of directive principle over a fundamental right? 42nd Amendment. Equal pay for equal work. to women is provided in which act? Equal Remuneration Act. Article 39B and 39C direct the state policy to secure the following: operation of economical system does not result to the concentration of wealth, means of production to the common determinant, ownership and control of the material resource of the community are so distributed as a best serve of the common good. The term equal pay for equal work is a directive principle of state policy. After the judgment of Supreme Court in Minerva Miles versus Union of India, the provision of Article 31C is primacy is given to directive principle in clause BC of Article 39 over fundamental right conferring by Article 14 and 19 of the Constitution. Law covered under Article 39B and C have given protective shield against some fundamental right. Directive principles are also regarded as relevant for covering what is the reasonable restriction of Article 19. Article 39A of the Constitution pretend to equal justice and free legal aid. By the Constitution 42nd Amendment 1976, the provision for equal justice and legal aid was inserted under Article 39A. Article 39A of the Constitution of India deal with free legal aid. Article 39A of the Constitution is related to equal justice and free legal aid. Provision of the free legal aid has been laid down in dash of the Constitution. Article 39A. Which one of the following is not a fundamental right? Right to constitution remedy. It is a legal and constitutional duty of the state to provide legal aid to the poor. No one shall be denied of the justice by the reason of poverty. By which constitutional amendment the Article 39A has been inserted in directive principle of state policy? Constitution 42nd Amendment 1976. Which one of the following is not a fundamental right? Right of free legal aid to the citizen. Which article of the Constitution of India obliges the state to organize village panchayat? Article 40. Which one of the following is a directive principle of state policy? To organize village panchayat. Right to work in the Constitution can be traced by directive principle of state policy. Right to work in India is directive principle. Right to work in India is a directive principle. Constitution of India deal with provision of maternity leave under Article 42. Which one of the following directive principle of state policy? To provide and participation of worker in the management of the industry. Which article under the Constitution of India talk about the participation of worker in the management of industry? Article 43A. Article 43A, which deal with the participation of worker in the management of industry, was added by Constitution in 42nd Amendment. In which one of the following article of the Constitution provision regarded the Uniform Civil Code has been given? 44th. Which one of the following is not a directive principle of state policy? Uniform Civil Code for citizen and non-citizen. According to the Constitution of India, Uniform Civil Code is a directive principle of state policy. Which article of the Constitution provides the enforcement of Uniform Civil Code? 44. Which one of the following directive principle of state policy is not a Gandhian principle? The state shall endeavor to secure the Uniform Civil Code throughout the territory of India. The provision of uniform civil code for the citizen has been provided in the Indian Constitution in Article 44. Which one of the following is not a principle of directive principle of state policy? Uniform civil code for the citizen as well as non-citizen. Article 45 of Indian Constitution referred to education to the children up to the 6-year age. Which article of the Constitution put obligation on the state to promote with the special care of the education economics interest of the weaker section of the people, any particular scheduled caste and scheduled tribes? Article 46. The prohibition of the employment of manual scavenger and their rehabilitation in 2013 ensure the dignity of individual only to goal in the preamble. Right to live and dignity implicit the fundamental right, protection of the weaker section from the social injustice and all form of exploitation provided under Article 46. Which one of the following statement is incorrect? Which one is correct? Article 40 of the Constitution is related to organize village panchayat. Article 48 of the Constitution related with the agriculture and animal husbandry. Article 39 of the Constitution related to equal justice and free legal aid. In which one of the following cases Supreme Court is heavily relied upon directive principle of state policy contained in Article 48 of the Constitution to uphold the state law which was challenged as a violation of fundamental right and religious function? State of Gujarat versus Mirzapur Moti Qureshi. Article 48A of the Constitution of India deal with protection and improvement of environment and the safeguard of forest and wildlife. The protection and improvement of environment, including the forest and wildlife of country, are both directive principle and the fundamental duty. Under the Indian Constitution, the doctrine of public trust to enshrine the Article 48A. Which article imposes the obligation on the state under the directive principle of state policy to protect and improve the natural environment? Article 48A. Article 48A and 51G were inserted by Constitution, the Constitution 42nd Amendment 1976. Which one of the following article of the Constitution of India relates to the protection and improvement of environment? Article 48A and Article 51A. According to Article 50 of the state shall take step into separate judiciary from the executive in the public service and state commission. Article 50 of the Constitution deal with separation of executive from the judiciary. Separation of judiciary from the executive is provided in the following directive principle of state policy of the Constitution of India. Which one of the following article of the Constitution reflect the doctrine of incorporation of international law into municipal law? 51C. Directive principle of state policy has been borrowed from the Constitution of Ireland. Directive principle of state policy embodied in Chapter 4 of the Constitution were derived from the Constitution of Ireland. Article 17 Abolishment of untouchability. Article 42 Maternity leave. Article 21 Protection of life and personal liberty. Article 19 Freedom of press. Part 4 and 5 of the Constitution of India is supplemented to each other. Fundamental rights are enforceable. Which statement is incorrect? Directive principle can override the fundamental right. 39A. Equal justice and free legal aid. 40. Organizing of the village panchayat. 41. Right to work. 44. Uniform civil code. Directive principle of state policy are embodied in the Part 4 of the Constitution of India derived from Republic of Ireland. Assertion. Directive principles are relevant for determining the reasonable restriction under Article 19. Directive principle and fundamental right are the part of Constitution of India. Equal pay for equal work is a constitutional goal to achieve by the state. Uniform civil code to the citizen of India, separation of judiciary from the executive, protection of monument and national importance. Directive principle of state policy contained in the Constitution of India is relevant determining the limitation of restriction laid down by Article 19 dealing with fundamental right of freedom. Article 39A free legal aid. Article 43 living wages for worker. Article 44 uniform civil code. Article 50 separation of judiciary. Which one is the active principle of state policy? States shall endeavor to secure citizen in uniform civil code. States shall promote a special care of the education and economic interest of the weaker section. States shall endeavor to protect every monument and place an object of artisan and historic interest.